Hi and welcome to the European Tour's Life on Tour podcast. I'm your host, Ewan Porter, and today I'm joined by one of the stalwarts of the European Tour. He's had 3 wins on the European Tour. He's a Ryder Cup hero, and he's one of the all-round good guys. Jamie Donaldson, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Ewan. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Now, I want to make sure I pronounce this correctly. You were born and raised in Pontypridd, is that right? Just outside of Cardiff in Wales?
Yeah, Pontypridd.
Pontypridd. I knew I'd get something wrong there, but look, we know Wales has an abundance of fantastic golf courses. How did you get started in the game?
My dad played. He played off, I think he got down to about 5 handicap, and he played a lot of his golf in South Wales. And then I think he was actually playing the Winter League while my mum was having me in hospital. So there's something in there, and then we moved away. We moved from Wales to London area, and then I didn't play golf there either. We moved up north to the northwest of England, and I started playing there with, I used to caddy for him a little bit, watching him throwing clubs up trees and stuff. He had a terrible temper, which I think is where I got it from in my early days of golf. It's not too bad these days. But I remember climbing trees to get his clubs back for him, which I thought was great fun. But through that and through caddying and through watching, I got into it that way, and that's what started me off, really.
Well, look, growing up, I know you mentioned that you were growing up there, starting to play in the northwest of England, but when you were playing junior golf and amateur golf in Wales, you were playing at a similar time to the likes of Bradley Dredge, Nigel Edwards, Gary Houston, Mark Pilkington, Liam Bond, a lot of really, really good players who went on to have a lot of success. So I imagine that the junior ranks and the amateur scene prior to turning pro was pretty competitive.
Yeah, it was. I was travelling up and down the country playing in, as many different Welsh Order and Merit events as I could, which opened up a lot of doors, which helped me, progress and come on in golf. And yeah, I played with a lot of those lads, and we had some great times. I played a lot of golf with Gary Houston. Dredgy had just turned pro as I started to come on the scene. Nigel Edwards was a foursomes partner of mine. David Park was a foursomes partner of mine. Now works on the European Tour. So, it was really competitive. But those days in amateur golf was great fun. Playing against those guys. I remember Whitney Gary Houston beating me. Coming down the last couple of holes in the semi-final of the Welsh Amateur, which he's never let me live down. Now caddying for Thomas Bjorn, obviously, and it was great fun. Load of good lads, and yeah, like you say, really competitive, really good fun. But those days, amateur golf, it's more about going out having a few beers than spending too long practicing. But that was many moons ago.
Did you all grow up idolising the Welsh wizard, Woosey, and did you have some sort of rapport with him from early on?
Not really, because obviously, in those days he was at the top of his powers sort of thing, and he was on the tour playing sort of world number one at the time. You'd sort of get on and do your own thing. He would, you'd obviously know about what he was doing on the world golf stage, and it sort of inspired us all to play and practice hard to try and aspire to be in those sort of places. Watching him, smash Ryder Cups, winning the Masters and all that. But he didn't have much to do with the amateur scene because obviously he was very busy. But we did our own thing, and like I say, all aspiring to be where he was.
Well, you turned pro in 2000, aged 24. Were you always going to be a golf professional, or was there something else on the horizon for you?
I always wanted to do something in golf, but I always wanted to be a club pro, really. That was me heading towards, working in a shop. I did a lot of shop work back in the day. I worked in different golf centres, and then I worked at the shop at the golf club locally. And I was always going to do my PJ training and become, a club pro locally. But I didn't have the academic qualifications to even start the course. And at the time of looking down that avenue, you needed academic qualifications to kick off. And at the time that I was offered a job at a local golf club to do the apprenticeship, knowing that I'd have to go back to school and do a bit more You know, had to do maths and English to start the course, and my golf at the time started to progress in the right way. But I was always going to go down that route, and obviously there was a few complications at the time. So I started playing, and the golf was picking up, and that was me off and running, thinking, oh, there might be a chance that I can do this for a living. And I think at the time I was about 18 and 19, you know, a time where it was a good time to start PGA training and things like that. But things started to progress, and I just kept playing. And then, you know, my career started to evolve from about 18. I was quite a late starter. You know, I think when I was about 16, I was off 7 handicap. So I was no child prodigy by any stretch of the imagination. I remember talking to Manacero on the golf course only a few years back, saying, you know, I was when I was 16, I was off 7. We had this conversation of how good you were when you were younger. And I said, what were you doing? And he said, I was playing in the Masters.
Yeah,
you know, he just won the British Amateur. Now he's playing in the Masters. So, you know, it doesn't mean that you're going to do it or not do it. Obviously, you've got a better chance if you're really good when you're younger. But you know, also you've got to be patient and work hard, and as long as you're progressing in the right way. It's just how fast you're doing it.
Well, before we get onto your playing career, I've got to ask you, were you a good salesman?
Yeah, I was pretty good actually. Yeah, I was pretty good. Yeah, it was down the sort of not necessarily the bullying tactic, but I could always talk them into buying something. But you know, I really enjoyed it at the time, and a lot of my mates do it still. You know, that was me. But career, you always wanted to be able to play, but you never know how good you're going to be until you're put there in competition.
Well, look, your first year out playing was in 2001 on the Challenge Tour. 2 wins, 6 top 5s, finished second in the rankings. That same year, you also recorded 2 top 10s on the European Tour. That's a hell of a lot of success straight off the bat. Do you feel like waiting that little bit longer to turn pro until you were 24, 25 by then helped in that regard?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, when I was about 21, I was playing really well. I think I'd won the Welsh Amateur then, and we started to perform in bigger national events. And I wasn't far off ready then, but I think I waited another year, and then the golf dipped, and by the time it took until I was 24 to get some sort of form back, because obviously turning pro, you've got to be striking while the iron's hot and have a great season, and then just naturally progress into playing professional golf. And the 2 years before 22, when I was 23, I was terrible. It was looking like not playing professional golf at all. So it took a while and a drilling off my mother, I remember back in the day, to get me fired up and to play, you know, golf and well at a high standard, to be able to just turn pro and get going, you know.
Gee, mum knows best, right?
Yeah, she gave me a right drilling. I remember I was hitting balls somewhere, and she comes up to me and she says, you know, I think it's time you got a proper job. You know, a kind of conversation. And I was devastated. I'm thinking, oh no, this is me. I'm actually going to have to do something different. And you always got dreams of playing professional golf. And by this time, you know, I'd had flashes of where it had been really good and then dipped a little bit. And suddenly you think, you know, sometimes you need a bit of a kick in the pants to get you going. And I started dedicating myself a bit more, and you know, less maybe going out to the pub having drinking with your mates and stuff, and just practicing harder. And that year I had the best year as an amateur, and then I turned pro, and yeah, that was just my time for when I was going to do it.
Well, I hope you've repaid your mother there. That was some very strong wisdom coming through on her part. But look, 2002, 2003, very steady. 3 top 10s, comfortably kept your card out on the European Tour. 2004, a little bit more of a struggle, but primarily with a back injury. Was it ever career-threatening, or was it just something you needed to step away and take some time off to get sorted?
Yeah, I mean, some people said it was. I went to see all sorts of different people to find, you know, the right answers to why I kept having so many problems. I had a lot of problems in 03, but managed to finish the season. And then start of 04, it wasn't great. You know, I had a lot of time off there. I think, 6 or 7 months out of the game. But you see all these different people, and I remember going to see one surgeon in London, and he said, "Listen, this game's not for you because of your condition. Do something else." So you hear people say that, you go, "Okay, I'll go and see somebody else." You keep looking for someone to find the right answer, don't you? Not the wrong answer. You don't suddenly take that on board and think, "Okay, I'll do something else." So I went to see all sorts of different people, and eventually one guy said, "Listen, if you do a load of stability work, you might just be able to play without the pain and be okay." So that's what I did. I took a year out doing that, and eventually, that helped, and I was able then to have a long career, taking tablets here and there and having episodes, but nothing as bad as it was back then.
Oh, look, by 2007, you were back on the Challenge Tour. You won again out there in Guatemala. 4 top 5s, easily got promoted back to the European Tour. But how difficult was it, having spent 5 or 6 seasons out on the European Tour, to be relegated back in your early 30s?
Yeah, it was difficult. But you've got choices. You're there for a reason, aren't you? I dropped back down to the Challenge Tour because I'd had such a bad season. So you have to change things. And I remember everything that I did, I had a management group, psychologist, coaches, everybody that I worked with, I changed because everything that I was doing wasn't working. I remember doing loads of time in the gym. I was doing loads of practice. Even when you missed a cut, you'd come home and practice. But at the time, whatever I was doing wasn't working. So I went from one extreme to the other. And the following year, I changed a coach. Left the management company, didn't use a psychologist, stopped going in the gym, stopped practicing as much. So everything I did was the opposite, and suddenly it turned around for the better. And I used 2007 as a practice season with my, sort of new way of doing things, and it all turned around, and then I was able to get back on the tour and head off in the right direction with a newfound way of doing things.
It's actually a really interesting point because, I know for myself, having played over 10 years, and I have a lot of junior golfers that say to me, what do I need to do in order to be successful or what have you? And for me, my theory is always don't stray too far from what you did when you were younger that made you good in the first place, because I know a lot of guys, including myself, you go out there, and I know when I was playing in the US, I'd see guys beating balls, 200 balls a day and grinding for hours on end. And that was never, ever me as a junior. But all of a sudden, I figured that's what I had to do. But that's not necessarily the case, right?
No, it's not. It's whatever works for you. And the secret to this game, I think, is finding that blueprint. And you can only do that through experience and trial and error, trying all different things. I mean, there's a lot of guys pound the gym now, and for me, it didn't really work. I do a little bits here and there, but not a lot. Never have done really. So I did a lot, and then I did less, or more or less ground it down to a halt. And I worked with different psychologists and stuff. It didn't help me massively. So you've got to experience and try all these things, and without doing it, you'll never know. So there's a lot of people out there that say you must do this, you must do that, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. I think the only thing that really works is hard work, and that you've got to, but it's the hard work in the right areas. It's putting all your energy into the areas that you need to, that help you move on, to help you kick on. There's no point, if you're a great driver of the golf ball, to just stand there and pound drivers on the range all day. If your short game's weak, you just have to put all your energy into that, and things like that. So it's energy applied into the right areas for success.
Well, the 2008, when you returned to the European Tour, from that point through till July 2012, you accumulated 22 top 10 finishes on tour before finally getting across the line at Royal Portrush in that Irish Open, having knocked on the door so many times. Describe the emotions finally getting it done after over a decade as a pro.
Yeah, it was immense. I certainly did a lot of drinking with friends after that for quite a while. It was a long time coming, and I don't know. I remember changing a few things I had a new caddy that week. It was his first week on the bag, and that helped. He helped me massively at the time. But sometimes, you know, a bit of a change, not necessarily the old guy wasn't good, but he was great. But we'd worked together for 4 or 5 years, and sometimes, you know, having somebody new on the bag makes a huge difference because it's just a bit of a fresh way of doing things. But, you know, it took a long time, but it's amazing. I look back at my early years of playing professional golf and, you know, versus the young lads now that take things so seriously and that so much more professional than I was, that a lot of us were early on in those early 2000s. It was, you know, Tuesday was out drinking night, Wednesday was rest day. If you made the cut, you know, you were obviously there for the weekend. If you weren't, it was looking for how many people you could get together for a Friday drinking session. And then Saturday was a rest day, but going out again Saturday night. Sunday was rest, and then the following week you do the same thing again if you were away on the road somewhere. You know, now that doesn't happen at all. And it was only when I started in, say, 2012, that sort of time, looking at things more seriously and being more professional, that the golf started kicking on in the right direction.
Well, look, the good form after that Irish Open continued, because it wasn't long after that you recorded your best major finish. You finished top 10 at Kiowa in the US PGA. But obviously that did wonders for your confidence. But I'm also interested to know, what was it that particular week that was so appealing to Europeans? Because Rory dominated, Dave Lynn was second, Poltz, Rosie, Carl Pedersen third, yourself and Peter Hansen were tied seventh. There was obviously something in South Carolina that week that was very fondly received by European golfers.
Yeah, I remember it was quite open off the tee, but tough, but windy. So, you know, that's the way, that's, you know, the kind of golf courses that we play on week in, week out in Europe. I mean, the wind made a huge difference and helped all the Europeans, and, you know, that's why we played so well. But it was just it was a cool atmosphere. You weren't too far away from a few sort of restaurants and bars and stuff, so a lot of people were out. It was a really friendly sort of atmosphere, and, you know, tailor-made for European golf.
You've mentioned bars and going out and having a couple of pints here or there quite a bit. On a serious note, do you think that's something that's helped with the longevity of your career and guys who came before you? Because I know, certainly being an Australian, you know, guys like Wayne Grady, Roger Davis, who I looked up to as a junior. That was Jack Newton as well. That was certainly part of their routine when they were out playing. And I mean, those guys were playing 35, 40 tournaments a year and never complained about being burned out. And they were playing, I mean, right through to they were 60 years old quite successfully. Is there something to that, do you think?
I mean, you know, I go out and I'll have a glass of wine or I'll have a beer. I won't have many nowadays. I haven't done for quite a while. I mean, I think it was Wentworth week this year. I was drinking water all week, which was the first. But it seemed to help with energy levels a little bit. Sometimes you feel a bit groggy, you know, if you've had a couple of beers at night. But I'll just mix it up. So occasionally I'll have a couple. Never too many in a tournament week. It's usually pretty professional nowadays because you have to be, because everybody else is being so. But certainly more past sort of history, then there was definitely a lot more to be said about that. But it was more so early days rather than, you know, as soon as Tiger comes along in the, you know, sort of late 90s, 2000, things started changing, golf in general, didn't it? Everybody started gymming it. Even the caddies were gymming it. Even now, you know, the caddies are all ripped or not necessarily ripped, but a lot of them are very fit compared to they were, say, when I started. No caddy would even dream of going to the gym, and never mind the players, you know. But nowadays, both the players and the caddies are gymming it. So, but it's like I say, it's each to his own. I've grown up the other way, which was the not so batter in the gym every night and things like that. And so therefore I've never really felt the need. Occasionally I'll get on a bike and do quite a lot of cycling. And I certainly need to do occasional bits of cardio stuff because, you know, you do need a level, and I'm not getting any younger. I'm 46 now, so You definitely need to do little bits, certainly, to not be so you're not blowing walking around a golf course, certainly. But it's each to his own. If the gym doesn't help you and you like a beer, then go and have a beer. You just might play great on it, but as long as it's not too many. But then again, everybody's different.
Yeah, exactly. Look, you may have waited over a decade for that first win, but you only had to wait another 6 months for that second victory at the 2013 Abu Dhabi HSBC Championship. Later in 2013, you were runner-up in the Turkish Airlines Open. 7 top 10s that year, 6th in the race to Dubai. I mean, at this point, you're 37, 38 years old. You must have legitimately felt that you were a chance of winning every single week you teed it up.
At the time, everything was really good. I was up there most weeks, as that record suggests. That was the peak. If you look back, I peaked sort of that 14, 15, that sort of time, which had been, I think it was something like 8 years of increased world ranking order merit finishes. So it was on a nice path to a peak of sort of 14, 15 time. You never know when your best golf's going to come in this game at all. So you just got to keep pushing and keep working to always trying to get better. After that, I think 14 season, it's difficult. I started having a bit more injuries later on. I've fighting wrist problems for a few years until I had an operation, and now it's fine again. So I'm playing decent again. But I'd say with injuries over the whole course of my career, I've been lucky. A lot of lads are having problems a lot younger. I had back problems early, but managed to get around that. Wrist problems, managed to get around that. So some people don't have that luxury where they've had operations and have not been able to come back from it. So I feel as though I've been lucky in that respect, and you just keep pushing to try and get better all the time.
Well, you alluded to 2014. You started the 2014 season coming off your best year in 2013. You started with a runner-up at the Nedbank Challenge in South Africa, and then early in 2014, you recorded your best finish on US soil, where you were tied second at the WGC Cadillac at Doral in Miami. And I remember that week, it was playing absolutely brutal that week. Patrick Reed won with -4, so you and Bubba Watson only missed a playoff by a single shot. Not long after that, top 15 at the Masters. And at this point in your career, I mean, like I mentioned, having played for over a decade and having experienced the ups and downs and the emotional roller coaster that comes with being a professional golfer, it was obviously very satisfying and gratifying knowing that you could take your game anywhere in the world and compete with the best.
Yeah, at the time, yeah. It was, I just kept opening new doors. The Irish Open back in 12 opened doors, and you suddenly got in the top 50 in the world. It helps winning. I think I won 4 times in 4 years over that sort of time period, which makes a huge difference in pushing your world rankings to get you in all these big tournaments. To not be in the top 50 in the world, it seems then it's very difficult to be able to progress on world ranking and European money lists and things like that. So, yes, at the time I was able to, sort of take the game and compete in a lot of different places all over the world, which was fantastic. But yeah, it's all around that top 50 in the world sort of stuff. You can be playing in that and not playing great and still flying on different money lists around the world. But if you're not in it, it seems to be very difficult to make any progressions personally in your career.
Your third European Tour victory came just prior to the 2014 Ryder Cup at the Czech Masters. And knowing that a debut appearance at a Ryder Cup at Gleneagles was a very real proposition, how much of a driving force was that for you each week you teed it up?
Yeah, I mean, over that calendar season, every time you play, you know that you have to perform to be able to get in that team. And it's the hardest thing about getting that Ryder Cup is getting in the team. It's like top 50 in the world. Once you're in there, it's hard to fall out. But if you're not in it, it's really difficult to get in. And it's the same with the Ryder Cup. I was physically and mentally exhausted by the time that I'd got in, because I felt as though it had taken so much out of me just to get in the team. I think I'd played the best golf I'd ever played, and I just scraped in by one place. So knowing to go to the Czech Masters, knowing that I think I had to finish top 8, otherwise I wasn't in. And I spoke to McGinley and he said, listen, the chances are you might not get a pick because you're a rookie and you're 40. So he said, you need to play yourself in. So you've got to go and finish top 8 in Czech. And I went there, played great and managed to, win the tournament, which was the icing on the cake.
All right, well, we'll touch upon the Ryder Cup here in a second, but when you look back at those glory years from 2012 through 2014, do you have any regrets perhaps from those years, or anything that you may have changed in the years after that you wish you could replicate again?
It's probably been the years before where I suppose, I don't know, you look back, but I wasn't very professional early on in my career. I wasn't. It was a case of a little bit of not being that professional and a little bit of over practicing and overworking to try and be. I suppose it wasn't too bad a balance. I worked hard, but I played hard, sort of attitude. But the working too hard gave me back problems, and it took so long to work out my best way of performing that it took 10 years to do that type thing. So even longer. So I was a sort of a late developer. And I think, having kids made a massive difference to me, because you're more grounded and, and at the time I hadn't won and I couldn't have, you're talking about your career when you've finished. I wanted more to be able to say to my kids when I was done than if I hadn't done it, you know what I mean? When it was all finished type thing, I wanted to be able to say to them, this is what I did. Because at the time before I had them, I hadn't won on the main European tour. And I was doing okay, but I wasn't doing well enough. And it's that grounding, it made a huge difference to me to inspire me to do better.
All right, well, let's get to the Ryder Cup 2014. Glen Eagles, obviously one of the most special weeks of your life. 7 of the 12 European Ryder Cup team members that week had been on the team in 2012, the Miracle at Medina. What was the team bond like there from day one, and was it intimidating coming into the side at all?
I remember so happy just to get in, and the lads, when all the Europeans to come together, the bonding is incredible. Even the guys that you didn't know as well, even though you know most of the team pretty well, the bonding is incredible. The team, in the team room, the cracks, great fun. Everyone's prattling about, messing about, winding each other up, playing jokes, pranks on each other, that type of thing. It's a very relaxed atmosphere, and an atmosphere that was similar playing team golf for like international matches when you played amateur stuff. So it just felt to me that, because I loved that team environment when we played for Wales, or you played for Great Britain and Ireland as an amateur. I loved that environment, and it was just that on steroids. So, you're with all the guys that you're competing against all year to try and beat, and now they're on your side, and that power and embracement and bonding between everybody is just like nothing else. It was great as an amateur, but as a pro to do that and to play in that team with all those guys that, a lot of guys with masses of experience, like you said, was just such a buzz. Well,
your partner that week for 3 of the matches was Lee Westwood, and he played his first Ryder Cup 17 years prior to that at Valderrama. How instrumental was it having someone with his experience alongside you out there on debut?
Oh yeah, massive. I had choices of different people to play with. The captain would always come and speak to you and go, these are your options. And Westwood was one of them. I just said, yeah, Westwood, because I'm more sort of chilled, trying to keep myself to myself a little bit on the golf course. I'm not, fist pumping or anything like that and big emotions. I'm generally just, keep your head down, get on with your job type thing. And he's very much like that. He's very chilled. And I remember playing a couple of holes in practice, and we're going up one hole, and there's about 20,000 watching, like there is in the Ryder Cup. There's so many people, and we're going up a par 4 at Glen Eagles. And he said, at the end of the day, he said, it's just another game of golf, isn't it? And you're like, just, there's so many people, there's so much pressure, even though it's so much fun. And he says something like that, and you're like, well, yeah, it is. And it just calms you down so much. And he was just awesome to play with, and we gelled brilliantly, during the pairings. And it was just, we both played really, really good. But I remember he's saying on the first tee in the foursomes, he said, listen, anything can happen in foursomes. He said, try and hit the fairway, try and hit the green. Take your chance. He said, most of the time, level par wins this, or 1 or 2 over. If we get around there as a pair, I think we've done pretty well and we'll have a good chance. And I think we were 5 under for our first foursomes game. We were 1 on the last. So he said on the last green, well, that's just, I guess I don't know much at all type conversation. So yeah, it was crazy, but we've just played really good, so it was nice.
When Lee says something like that, do you, in hindsight, do you feel like it may have wound back your expectations a little bit, thinking that, geez, we got to go out there and make a ton of birdies to win this? And when he actually says, well, even par 1 over, you think, well, that's very attainable, that's very achievable, and perhaps, no doubt a little bit instrumental, I'd assume, in how you performed.
Yeah, I mean, that's all you're trying to do, is just trying to put it in play and give yourself a chance, because it is difficult. But I've not played in the Ryder Cup before, and I don't know, the level of what it was going to be. So you just go up there and just do your own thing. And that's all you were trying to do, and which is all you really try and do in normal tournament golf. You're more aggressive in foursomes if your partner's, taking the pressure off you, and you can attack a pin a bit more. In four ball, sorry. So, in foursomes, it's a different scenario. It's much more pressurised. I don't think I really slept much the night before the foursomes, because when you see the list, and I think he said we were first out in the afternoon. I'd been rested in the morning. We were first out in the afternoon, and you're thinking, oh, wow, I'm playing with Westwood and going out first. It's like, you don't sleep at all that week. There's so much pressure involved. The adrenaline's through the roof. But we went out first and played fantastic. So it was just great to get that first point on the board. As a rookie, it means you're going to play again. If you lose that first game, you ain't playing again until the singles. So it was nice to get the win and able to then go again.
Well, when they did the draw for the Sunday singles on the Saturday evening, and you saw you'd be paired up against Keegan Bradley, who I guess at the time he was essentially Mr. Ryder Cup for Team USA. What were your thoughts there, and was there any extra motivation going up against him?
No, you don't really pay too much attention to who you're playing, because, like I say, it's so adrenaline fueled. I mean, I remember going down the first, and we both hit really good tee shots. We both hit good shots in, but too much adrenaline. Both shots went long, and we were only hitting like a lob wedge or a gap wedge in. Both shots went long, and I chipped it down to about 3 feet, and he was about 3 feet. And I just thought, there's so much involved, and how important that day is and that week is, that we were both 3 foot from the hole. We both hit great tee shots, great second shots, but the adrenaline is just taking them too far. So I said, should we just pick them up? And he looked at me as if it's like gamesmanship or something. And I'm like, what's the point? Let's just go, let's play the game. And, the best guy's going to win, I'm thinking in my head. So hopefully it's me, and let's just get on with it. You don't want to be faffing over a couple of 3-footers on the first hole. And he went, no, we'll put him out. Because he's thinking I'm saying it because I'm nervous or something. Which, to be honest, you're nervous before you play. You're not as bad when you get going. And I went, so we both knocked him in and we moved on. But, he was kind of rattled a bit. He was like, he didn't really know what to... He was thinking, I'm trying to get in his head or what, I don't know. But I'm thinking, let's just not miss these on the first. Let's get on with it. And, he said, put them out. So we both holed and we moved on. But it was kind of, I don't know, he was a bit rattled from the off, I think.
Well, you obviously, that day is one that you'll always remember. You closed out the winning point for the European Ryder Cup side in style, stiffing that approach into the 15th hole to win your match against Keegan 4-3. I mean, you'd won tournaments all over the world. You'd contended in big championships. How were the emotions winning, not just for yourself and not just for Team Europe, but also an entire continent?
Yeah, I mean, you don't think too much about what's on the line. You just feel what's going through your body at that time. I remember having that shot in front of me. I had a chance on the previous green. I did a really good drive. You could drive the green just over the back, and I putted it up to about 8 feet and then misread the putt and didn't hole it. So we're going down 15. McGinley kept saying all week, don't get complacent. Don't go looking at leaderboards. Concentrate on your own game. Win your point. If it's don't go looking at boards, because if you see red, you'll start trying to do things differently. Just win your game, concentrate, then help people with support after. Go and watch other people, but don't get involved with boards and scores as you're playing. So, I remember at the time I've got that wedge shot. I'm 4 up at the time because we'd halved the previous hole. He's hit it to, I don't know, about 20 feet left of the pin. But it's like all the stars align on that shot. I've got wind off the right, my bad shot's left, the pin's right. So it's in the right front corner. I've not hit a wedge shot right all week. So there's no way I can miss the green right. I'm 4 up. And because I was 4 up and because the yardage was perfect, the wind's off the right, I draw it. My bad shot's left. If it hit a terrible wedge shot, it's just 20 feet left where he is. So I can play a really aggressive shot at the flag because I can't miss it right. So it's like everything's just aligning perfectly, and then the ball's taken off on a perfect line. And it was able to obviously dance around the hole, which you don't know to what extent how close it is until you're getting closer, nearer to where to the green, because I don't want to be doing cartwheels down the fairway. As I get down there, the ball is suddenly 4 feet, not a foot, and he makes and I miss, and then you don't need that sort of things going on when you're getting ahead of yourself. So to get down there and see the ball close to the pin, obviously then it's all over, and it was the icing on the cake, big time.
I bet. And I remember the following morning you doing or conducting a rather amusing interview with a UK breakfast show. So the hours that transpired between then, talk to me about the celebrations and the revelry. Yeah,
it was just total obliteration. I remember just my brother was with me, and I can pelt him because he's my brother, but he passed out in the bar and he then woke up, projectile vomited in the fireplace at Glen Eagles Hotel, which wasn't cool. And then, I'm watching him do this as we were drinking this very expensive whiskey that we were putting on the tab. And I just tipped mine in a flower pot and managed to stay compos mentis, but still obviously absolutely obliterated, which I was for probably 2 years after that.
Well, those 2 years after that, you actually went and took your game to the US predominantly. You focused on playing over there, and you did have a couple of top 10 finishes at the Players' Championship and the Honda Classic. Very tough golf courses in Florida, but for the most part, I think it's fair to say that your game didn't quite live up to the hype of those years prior to that. How difficult was it from both a golf perspective and a life perspective transitioning to the US full time?
It was difficult. I'd sort of go out there 3 or 4 months a year and live there and take the family. And it was, I enjoyed it at times. I played well in different venues. Like those two especially were really good finishes. Doral finish was great. But overall, I think, I felt as though I wasn't competing enough over there because I was only there, was popping in, popping out. I felt as though you had to live there and commit to it full time. And I wasn't kind of able to do that. And then the kids got too old and they started school, and I wanted to school them in the UK. I didn't really, wasn't planning to school them in America and stay there. I knew because of my age, I was never going to be there for possibly that long. It was only going to be temporary. I just love the European lifestyle, the way that we do things over here. In America, they do things very differently. It's much more individual. There's not so much crack and fun, if you like, of everybody mixing, going out for dinner and things like that. Everyone's it's room service trays down the corridors and not as much of a fun element. Everyone's totally dialed into, performance, which we all are, but you need a bit of fun as well. And I've always lived my life that way, and it probably never really be any different. And I couldn't dedicate myself to a point of sitting in my room and having room service every night. It just bore the living daylights out of me. And that was the kind of lifestyle, and it wasn't for me. I did 4 years of living there, 3 or 4 months a year. But, as soon as the kids started to go to school, I knew that I didn't want to go away for I couldn't go away for a month at a time to not see my family over the other side of the world. I knew I couldn't do that. And I kind of started to switch off then with playing over there as much, because I didn't want to be going over there for long periods of time, which is what I felt as though you had to do. I couldn't be going. I remember I started going to America early on, about 2013, whenever it was, and I was going there 3 weeks at a time and coming back for 2 weeks, going back for 3, and I found it so difficult with all the jet lag. So living there certainly helped and enabled me and others to play well over there, because you were there for long periods of time. But again, as soon as the kids started to go to school, that was me, really.
Well, you were back in Europe competing full-time in 2017, and you actually finished 4th in your final event at Valderrama to finish 99th on the race to Dubai and essentially keep your playing rights for the following year. Upon reflection, did any of the Ryder Cup heroics, or perhaps what transpired in the US in 2015, 2016, did any of that carry over? Was there any sort of letdown at all that season?
I don't know. I think it started with a few wrist issues kind of around that time, 17, 18. And I remember picking up a lot of little injuries that sort of stopped me doing great. And, that was another slow season, lost a bit of interest. I did lose interest sort of that 17, 18 time around then, because the golf wasn't as good as it was, and your heights that you've been at, playing Ryder Cups and things like that, and playing in all the world events and majors and things, that's not there anymore. And then it became very difficult with little niggling injuries that I remember racing round the roundabout outside the Glen Eagles Hotel that night after the Ryder Cup, falling over, battered, dropping my hip on the curb. My hip wasn't great. I couldn't get through the ball for about 6 months after that. I think I did my groin in racing somebody outside on the grass. That play, things like that were just, my groin was never the same for a long time. Little things like this, just all after, that sort of time that didn't help things. But then just losing interest because you're not playing as good, and it just becomes very boring then, because you're away all the time. You're not getting much out of it in a competitive way. You're not, financially, you're not getting much out of it either. And you're away from the family all the time, and it's just dull. So it sort of demised into a bit of a lull. But the finish at the end of the year, that was the excitement, because I knew I had to finish 4th and to get my card, and I did. And then you buzz off that again. You get that buzz back again, but it's not enough to get out of the mire, if you like.
Well, look, you alluded to the wrist injuries. You did have surgery on your wrist at the end of 2018. 2019, you were outside 130 again on the race to Dubai. You stated in a European Tour blog, actually, that you felt you came back too early from the wrist surgery. How difficult was it coming back from the surgery, and how did you know that you did come back too early?
I think it was after that. I think I can't remember, first or second lockdown that we had. I came back after that, and I was able then to hit the ball properly. I remember coming back after it had been 9-10 months. I can't even remember how long it was. I came back after the surgery and I just couldn't hit the ball the same. I couldn't get any hit on it. It wasn't going very far. It was awful. But in practice it wasn't too bad, but in tournament play it was dreadful. Thinking that's me done then. And we had another lockdown. And then when I came back from that was another 3 or 4 months. It had healed a bit more. It had got stronger with more physio, more rehab. And then it was all right. And then, things I started hitting the ball better and things started to progress in the right direction.
Well, look, if we go back to the end of 2019, just prior to the lockdown, you entered Q School at the age of 44, having not played Q School for 15 odd years. Was there a time when you legitimately thought, that's it for my playing career, I'm done, I've got to look elsewhere?
Yeah, it was around that sort of time. Yeah, I remember going to that Q School and just bombing out. I think I only played about 2 or 3 rounds. I think I was having more wrist issues at the time, flare-ups, and I think it was freezing cold in Spain. I think there was ice on the car in the morning. I always fought a bit of the old back here and there, and when it's really cold now, because I'm older, it seems to be very difficult. I really struggle when it's freezing. When it's warm, I'm fine. But when it's freezing, my body seems to lock up, and I can't hit the ball as well. I bombed out early. I think I played dreadfully, but with, because I didn't quite have the flexibility wrist wise, and then you're starting to think I'm done here. Which I've had before, different points in my career. I had it in 06, I had it in 04, and I had it then. So it's sometimes good to hit rock bottom because you know that there's only one way you can go after that, and it's up.
Mm. Well, look, I hear you're a keen gardener and you love a good lawn. During lockdown last year, how much time were you able to spend on that and with your kids as well?
Oh yeah, loads. I spent loads in the garden. I built a 15 bed raised garden after, buying a bit of land off the neighbour. So that kept me busy. I love going in the garden. I love being at home with the family, and more so now. My kids playing football. My boy's playing football. My daughter's playing netball and stuff, and they're all getting into all that. And he's playing cricket as well, and the social on the cricket's fantastic. You take your chair, take your cool box, and sit there, just having a few beers with your mates, and the other dads watching your son play. I mean, there's nothing better than that. So you do miss a lot of that. And you miss a lot of them growing up, obviously. So I try not to play too much golf, and when I'm at home, it's family time, and I don't practice much, and I spend as much time as I possibly can with the family. In any sport, I go and watch him practice his football in the evening sometimes. So I just love that family life and getting involved, watching the kids do stuff. It's brilliant.
Well, I've got to ask you about the garden. What's your favourite vegetable to grow? I mean, surely as a Welshman, it's leeks, right?
Do you know, the leeks now are fantastic, and they're harvesting awesome. They're big, thick, beautiful, fresh, totally organic leeks, and they are really, really good. But I think if I had to pick a favourite, it'd be squashes. They're so easy, they grow so quick. Roasted squash sweet potato soup is something else. It's amazing what you get into as you're getting older. But we've had loads of fun with that. The sweet corn is incredible as well. That's unbelievable.
Nice. You've also been hatching chickens too, I believe. How many have you got? How are they doing?
Yeah, we hatched how many? 6 or 7 chicks from about 10 eggs. So that was awesome as well. For the kids, they loved it. Me and the missus loved it. We had them in the house for a while. When they're tiny, they're in the house, and sometimes you'll come in, they're in a big cardboard box with all these heaters and that, and then you'll come back and they've somehow got out and they're on top of your sofa and they've done the business absolutely everywhere. So that wasn't great, but I think, generally it was great stuff. Watching them hatch in incubators, brilliant.
Well, all these hobbies of yours, and then, of course, obviously getting the joy that you do out of watching your kids play football and play sport, how important is that for your mental health and being able to get away from the grind of the tour?
Oh, yeah. If I go I go in the garden I can come home absolutely wound up and totally headshot, mentally drained and battered after a golf tournament sometimes because of what you put on yourself to perform, because you're not there to just make up the numbers. So if you're not doing well, it is so frustrating. But I go and spend 2 hours in the garden and I've emptied the cup straight away. I don't even remember the golf tournament. 2 hours in the garden, whether it be turning a compost heap or filling another one or, planting tomatoes, melons or whatever it might be, growing seeds, cuttings, anything it might be. Totally forgotten about the golf. Totally lose yourself in the garden. Sometimes I can go out there and I'll say to the miss, I'm just going out for an hour. And I'll come back in and say, I've gone out at 10 o'clock and I'll come back in and say, oh, shall we have some lunch? And she'll go, well, I'm going to pick the kids up from school. It's 3 o'clock. You've been out there for 5 hours and I've not even known. So I totally lose myself in that. And because of that, I've got a clear mind going away playing golf because I've forgotten about what even happened in the last tournament. So it's just doing that and spending time with the family. It's just obviously, we do it all, get the kids involved. My daughter loves it. So, doing it all together is brilliant.
Yeah, I bet. And look, after lockdown, 2020 was a very good season for you. You finished in the top 10 on 4 occasions. And then 2021 has been excellent again, 3 top 5s, and including that excellent runner-up finish at Wentworth in the BMW PGA. Do you feel the game's getting closer to where it was in those halcyon years, I guess you could call it?
Yeah, I mean, at Wentworth, I hit some of coming down the last 9 holes, I hit some of the best, I hit 2 of the best forehands I think I've ever hit. The one into 15 and one into 18, that I'm staring at this thing climbing into the sky on the 15, thinking, who on earth has hit that? Because I never even felt it come off the club face. This thing's climbing, drawing towards the flag, and I'm looking at it going, I just don't even know how I've managed to do that. So I hit quite a few shots there that I'd not hit before, on that level of consistency. So that was enlightening, and it was a great week for me. I really fancied winning, and I had a putt on the last, which I misread, sadly, and didn't go in. But, I just had great feelings all week, and the game got better as the week went on, so that was brilliant. I think the hard thing as you're getting older is consistency. It seems hard sometimes to play that way. Like 2 weeks later, I'm hitting it, nothing like as well. So, then you've got to find it again and try and put it all together again and perform again. The consistency, the hardest thing now, where, if I'd have had a decent week like that 5 years ago, I felt as though it's going to be like that every week all year then. Where now, you're kind of losing it and trying to find it again a bit more. But yeah, so it's been great this year, and last year's been really good. And it's nice to, be up there in contention, playing to win tournaments again.
Well, you're currently 31st in the race to Dubai and locked in for a return to the DP World Tour Championship in Dubai in a few weeks' time. Somewhere where you've had some success in the past. You've played well on previous occasions. You must be pumped to get back there.
Yeah, it's great. It's such a great feeling going there because you've had a decent season, depending on where you are on the money list, obviously. But to be there now, for me, the last couple of years have been brilliant. I do enjoy playing that golf course. I've had a few decent finishes there. I think couple of top tens, maybe one. But I always feel as though it's a course that I play well at, but don't play quite well enough. So I'll be looking to go there to see if I can find a way to do even better and try and contend to win there. But it's a really strong golf course that you just have to play really well around. So I'll be going there to do that.
Well, what can we expect to see in the future for Jamie Donaldson? Have we seen the best of you yet?
Probably. But no, you don't know with golf, do you? You never know what's coming. So as long as you put yourself in a position to play as well as you can possibly play and let golf, let the good golf take care of itself, you never know what can happen. It's just got to keep a positive, open mind and be as patient as possible. So I'd like to say, no, you haven't, but, time is catching up with me and things are getting harder. The guys are getting better, but, after the way I played at Wentworth, you never know.
Well, mate, look, thanks very much for joining us on the Life on Tour podcast. It's been terrific to see the career resurgence the last 18 months to 2 years, and congratulations on everything you have achieved, and fingers crossed the best golf is yet to come.
Thank you very much. I hope so too.
Cheers, Jamie. Thank you.
To watch another European Tour video, click here, and to subscribe, click here.